Omobola Gambo, thank you. Oluwagbemiga Paul Ayomide, thank you. So I want to say thank you to, hey, Dennis. Hello, Dayo. I hope you can hear me. If you can hear me, just please say yes that you can hear me. If you can hear me, just please say yes that you can hear me. I need to be certain that you can hear me, and I need to be sure that what I am doing is actually clear and you can see me, you can hear me. Oluwagbemiga Paul Ayomide, thank you, you said. Thank you for joining me as well. So, very quick one. My intention is not actually to take up your time. What I want to do here this afternoon is to bring you to an awareness of the 10 common fears, phobias, and anxieties that we all have, or that some of us have, or some of the common fears, phobias, and anxiety. And the goal here is to help you see them in practical terms such that you can actually begin to work your way out of it. So I'm going to be walking you through, and as you can see, this side of the screen you have me, this side of the screen you have my presentation, my slide. The goal of this series of videos, this is actually the first in this series. The goal of this series of videos is to actually share and explain and bring you to a place where you can actually, on your own, work out your own solution when it comes to fears, phobias, and anxieties. So by this side you have my presentation, by this side you have my own face. The idea is so that you can actually follow along as I teach, as I share, and as I expatiate, educate, and sometimes entertain you as I do this. So first off, let me pause my audio so that you can hear me clearly. Now I've paused my audio so that you can hear me clearly. So again, I want to say thank you to everyone who has joined me so far. Thank you to everyone who has joined me so far. So let me begin these 10 common fears, phobias, and anxieties by discussing what are fears, what are phobias, and what are anxieties. I need to create the distinction first. So to explain that, what I would need to do here is to first bring you to this understanding that fear is actually what happens on the instant. Phobias are more of external induced reaction towards something, and anxiety is more of what goes on in your head. Again, fear is more of what happens externally on the spot. Phobia is more like a reaction to something, and while anxiety is a projection towards something. So I need to first of all clarify that before as I get started with this. So like I said, my intention with this broadcast is to bring you to an awareness of the 10 common fears, phobias, and anxiety. So let me pick on number one. Number one is performance anxiety. Number one is performance anxiety. Now, performance anxiety has to do with when you are in the spotlight. Now, this is actually what happens when you hear that people say that I am afraid of speaking in public. I'm afraid of doing something in front of others. I am afraid of speaking in public. I'm afraid of going to a mall or being asked to actually talk in front of others. Now, performance anxiety actually focuses more on you being in the spotlight. And when I say you being in the spotlight, I'm referring to you specifically appearing in front of an audience. Now, the audience may be an audience of 2, it may be an audience of 3, it may be an audience of 10, it may be an audience of thousands. It all depends on your own particular situation. And if you get what I'm trying to say right now, performance anxiety has to also do with when somebody wants to propose to a lady, or when somebody wants to pitch a business to someone, because it has to do with your performance, with how you are able to actually ask the person out or ask the person for a favor, it begins to create some form of anxiety inside of you. It begins to create some form of anxiety inside of you. So I want to know if you can hear me. Please Let me know. Please comment in the drop a comment below that you can hear me. Drop a comment below that you can actually see me, that you can hear, see what I'm actually sharing with you. So, performance anxiety has to do with you being in the spotlight, and oftentimes it is caused by childhood trauma. And when I say childhood trauma, I'm referring to perhaps maybe when you were very small, sometimes when you were young, many years ago when you were actually young, you usually like to sing in the house, and because your voice was not that perfect, so you got someone one day, perhaps maybe your parent, maybe your mother, maybe someone around your family, who actually told you, please, will you keep quiet? You are disturbing me. And then because the person said, will you keep quiet? You are disturbing me. You internalized that experience. You internalized that shock. You internalized that feedback. And you now turned it into a story, into a narrative that you stored in your head, such that anytime you have to appear before people, you begin to feel very anxious to appear before people. And the interesting thing is that a lot of people that actually speak on stage sometimes have this performance anxiety. In fact, some of us, before we actually get on stage to talk, because I do a lot of public speaking, right? So some of us, before we get on stage to talk, we actually have to sometimes work on ourselves to overcome our own performance anxiety. Now, again, performance anxiety is also caused by deep-seated beliefs and mental images that you keep playing all over again. And when I say deep-seated beliefs, I'm talking about maybe because of the experience, because of the trauma that you experienced when you were young, it created a belief for you that I can never sing well. I can never do this thing well. And so because you have that deep-seated belief, and because it was formed when you were young, it also creates images in your head such that you don't ever picture yourself as someone who can actually do it well. So it begins to decide how you would perform. Now, let me give you a practical story. There's a guy who was meant to present his business idea before some investors. Now, what happened was that because he had tried severally and failed, he thought that every single investor was going to actually tell him no. And so because of that, he couldn't pitch his business very, very well. Now, what happens is that anytime he sits down to actually, anytime he prepares a business proposal, that trauma keeps playing in his head. That trauma keeps repeating in his head. And that did not let his business to grow. Now, if you are listening to me, I will appreciate if you can help me share this with others. If you can help me share it, so please share it. Share with others or invite your friends to come join you live. So that's number one, performance anxiety. Number two, let's talk about fear of not being worthy or not good enough. Now, the fear of not being worthy or not good enough often starts because you're comparing yourself and judging your worth. So you use metrics like the number of cars you have, how your makeup sits well on your face, how good your clothes is, how well dressed you are, or you may even say that is determined by the money in your bank account. So the fear of not being worthy or not good enough often is my Facebook live frozen? Okay, I think it's continued now. So the fear of not being worthy or not good enough often is caused because you are busy comparing yourself with someone else or with some other persons, and you are judging your own worth. Now, what happens is that it creates very low self-esteem for you, and then it denies you of the courage to go do the things that matter to you. And more importantly, it actually makes you to begin to dislike yourself. You don't get to experience what is called self-love. So the fear of not being worthy or not being good enough is why a lot of people have this idea that I want to do something, but they are fearful of expression. They are fearful of expression. They can't actually go out and do that thing. So they are afraid that if I go there now, somebody will say that I had no makeup. Or maybe it has to do with even coming on live on Facebook like this. Someone will say, if I go live without makeup, without wearing a wig, without doing makeup, without touching up and all that, that somebody will tell me that I'm not good looking, that I'm not good enough to come on a Facebook live. Now, it always plays out some way, somehow in your own life. And interestingly, when you have the fear of not being worthy or not good enough, it also shuts down opportunities from coming your way. I mean, when opportunities come to you, you tend to, because you can't see yourself as being worthy of that opportunity, or you're not good enough to take advantage of that opportunity, you tend to push it away. You tend to push it away such that you say, I'm not worthy of it. In fact, I've seen people who were accosted by a guy. Let me even use the example of a lady. A lady was accosted by a guy, and when asked, babe, I would actually love to go into a relationship with you, the lady did not actually answer anything. Instead, she just quietly walked away and got to a house. And what she started saying is that, I don't deserve that guy. That guy is too good to be true. I don't deserve that guy. Now, whenever you are using that phrase, I don't deserve, or I'm not worthy of this and this, it is because you are actually comparing yourself with another person. And this is the fear of not being worthy or not good enough. So let's proceed. Let's look at the fear number 3. And this is the fear of abandonment, or the fear of separation. Now, this usually tends to pop up in the area of our relationships. I hope you can still hear me. I hope you can still, I hope you're still following. So if you're still with me, let me know. I want you to comment below what you have learned so far, what has spoken personally to you so far. So fear of abandonment or fear of separation. Now, fear of abandonment or separation usually works like this. It's because you are being constantly left in relationships. That means that maybe you start a relationship and someone actually leaves you, or you started a relationship some time ago and the person left you for another guy or left you for another lady, or it happens that you start a relationship, but before the relationship gets to a place of maturity, you have already quit the relationship because you don't want to be left like the other guys, the other girls, the other ladies actually left you. So the fear of abandonment or separation is actually real. I've seen people who interestingly, this is one of the reasons why people jump from one relationship to the other. Hey, Shakira, thanks for joining. Mary Ogundemu, thanks for joining me. Ifeoma Ben, thanks for joining me. Samson George, thank you. So the fear of abandonment or the fear of separation works such that you are because you've had experiences of being constantly left in a relationship, because you have this history, this personal history that every time you start a relationship, the guy leaves you. Every time you start a relationship, the girl leaves you. And so that has created a pattern for you such that the moment a guy comes close to you, or maybe you even start a relationship, you begin to have this internal conflict that, let me exit this relationship. This relationship is not going to last. This relationship is not going to last. Now, the interesting thing is that you may not be aware that this is what's actually going on. That is the fear of abandonment, of the fear of separation that's actually running inside of you as some form of mental programs. Now, typically, people do this to prove that they are smart. But it's often because they don't want to face the fear of abandonment or the fear of separation. Now, here's what I'm practically explaining. Now, if you find people who go on crusades, the kind of crusades where they say that men are wicked, women are bad, or all men are dogs, what you are hearing tends to be the fear of abandonment or fear of separation. They are afraid of people leaving them. They are afraid of seeing the past experiences they've had repeating itself. So I can understand. Hey, Elizabeth Akunyili, thank you for joining. Victor Epobasi, thank you for joining me as well. Innocent Tusa, thank you for joining me. Peace Ogba rather, thanks for joining as well. So this is the fear of abandonment or separation, where you are feeling like you don't want to stay in a relationship because you are afraid that the guy will leave you or the lady will leave you. And this often is the reason why people tend to, before they even get married, they're already thinking of divorce. They're already thinking that one day, somehow, what has happened in my past is going to repeat itself because the guy or the lady is going to eventually leave me. Now, this is the fear of abandonment. This is the fear of separation. Sometimes it shows up as people being afraid of divorce. Now, I've had to work with someone who was actually afraid, who had this fear of abandonment or separation simply because our relationship history she has had a lot of bad experiences with guys. So when she attended one of my classes, the Fear Resolve program, which I had last year, when she attended the Fear Resolve program, which I had last year, one of the things she realized was that because of the past experiences she's had with guys, she was somehow pulling back from totally committing herself to guys. So anytime a guy comes close, she wants to run away. She wants to say, I know he will still leave me. Now, the interesting thing is that after attending the Fear Resolve, by the time she was done, as at right now, she's actually in a relationship and they're actually getting married this year. So I'm not just talking about theory here, I'm talking about something that I've actually had to work with people and seen great results. Olapopos, thank you for joining me. Ekemini Joseph, thank you for joining me. Kingsley Ime, thanks for joining me as well. So let's move further. Let's talk about fear of animals. Now, fear of animals, and this one particularly, the fear of animals, this has to do with whatever animals you fear. It could be the fear of dogs, it could be the fear of cats, it could be the fear of spiders, it could be the fear of rats, it could be the fear of snakes, it could be the fear of owls, it could be the fear of birds. It all depends on your own peculiar case. Now, what I found in my experience with people is that whatever animal they fear usually comes from the place where they hear of someone's experience or they have had to experience something like that before. For example, let me use the example of a dog. So it happened that a few weeks ago, this January actually, this last month, a few weeks ago, I was going to our neighbor to tell them that I was about to leave for church. And the moment I got to their own side of the compound, I discovered that actually I wasn't paying attention. And then I just said, and a dog who was standing, a very big Australian dog was actually standing on my back. And it was just roaring, getting set to pounce if I actually. But then because I can understand what happens, why animals usually attack people. And my intention is that eventually as we go on in this series, I'm going to cover that, okay? So, what my broadcast is frozen. I hope it's not because of network. Okay, it has continued. Fantastic. Hey, Laide Razak, thank you. Dr. Laide. Adachiko, thank you. Ekemini Joseph, thank you. So, I don't know why this is freezing. Is there any reason why it's freezing? So let me continue from where I stopped. So what I realized is that day, because I have this understanding that dogs only attack you when they smell fear. The same thing as a snake. A snake only attacks when it smells or it perceives fear inside of you. Now, any animal that attacks someone, it is basically because the animal wants to protect itself. It is not because the animal is actually that violent. Now, this is something that I was able to understand very early. I think that should be about maybe a year or 2 years ago when I understood this. So when I was standing in front of my neighbor's compound and the dog was actually getting ready to pounce, At that instance, I had fear. Now, the moment I had fear on that instance, what I did was to take a deep breath in and to breathe out. Now, what happened was that the moment you actually try this, you can even try this right now. If you take a deep breath in and you breathe out, what happens is that oxygen is taken into your nervous system. Oxygen is sent into your brain, and so it produces some calming feelings in your body. Now, the moment I took that breath in and breathed out, I just did like this, and the dog started wagging its tail, and the dog immediately began to play with me. Now, if I didn't have this understanding, at that instance, that dog would have sensed my fear and it would have attacked. At that point, maybe right now, maybe one of my side would actually, maybe one part of my face would actually be damaged or whatever. Anything could have happened. So I'm actually bringing this to your awareness so that you know that if you fear an animal, it is because of a perceived story, a perceived experience. It is something that you're actually projecting or whatever. But animals don't typically attack people unless they sense fear in them. So let me give you another example when it comes to snakes. Have you realized that a small child, a baby actually, if a baby is sitting down right here like this, and a snake comes around, do you notice that the snake will actually go around the child? The snake will actually go around the child. It will play around the child very well without having to strike the child. Why? Because the snake cannot perceive fear in that small baby. Once the baby begins to get trained by society, begins to get trained by parents, begins to get trained by handlers, people around the child, that snake is dangerous. Once the child sees a snake, even from afar, the child begins to panic. The child begins to panic. And the moment the child begins to panic, it triggers the fear response in a snake as well to want to attack. So again, fear of animals is often caused by experiences, learnings, things that you've been told. So it's important you come to that awareness as well. So let's move forward. Now, fear of heights, flying, or accidents. Now, fear of heights, flying, or accidents. Now, this is often caused by previous negative experience, direct or indirect. Now, when I say direct or indirect, this is what I mean. I mean, typically when people say that they are afraid of something, particularly when they say they are afraid of heights or accident, let me pick on accident specifically. You may have experienced an accident before, and so because of that, you are afraid of getting inside a plane, or you're afraid of going on a journey because you have a previous bad experience. Now, second thing that you may want to also note, let me even use the fear of heights. Now, people are naturally born with the fear of heights. In fact, there are basically two fears that we are born with: the fear of loud sound and the fear of heights. Every other fear we have, we learned them. And I'm going to do a different live video to explain that very, very well, so that you can understand how you learn majority of the fears that you have. Hey, Scholastica, thank you for joining. Salu Olatunji, thank you for joining. So, the fear of heights or fear of accidents, or fear of flying in aeroplane, could be caused by a previous negative experience, whether directly that you were involved or indirect that you were told. So oftentimes it is because of you were told. Maybe you read it in the newspaper or you saw it in the news, and so that information was captured. And so anytime you go close to an aeroplane that you are traveling, you begin to feel panicky, you begin to feel anxious that you might end up having an accident. Now, even when it comes to accidents with vehicles, it often comes from the place where you have had a previous negative experience. Maybe you've had an accident before, and because you had an accident, maybe it somehow damaged your leg or it gave you a kind of scar. And so, based on that single experience, you are generalizing it such that you now think that anytime you're on the road or anytime you are traveling, that there might be an accident. Now, that is simply a fear showing up right there. So let's move forward to fear of confinement. Now, fear of confinement has to do with you not being fear of confinement has to do with you not being able to escape from a small or enclosed place. Now, have you noticed that you have the desperate urge to want to run away from something? Or maybe you avoid crowds? Or maybe when you get into an event, maybe a training program, or maybe you are doing something in a group, and then you got there, maybe you even go to an auditorium where people are gathered. And then the moment you get there, what you are doing is to look for a seat by the corner, by the door, or maybe that is, you don't want to sit in the middle, you want to sit by the extreme seats. Now, sometimes we are not aware of this, but it's often because of the fear of confinement. We are afraid that we are fearful to be confined into a smaller enclosed space. Now, let me even tell you a recent experience. On Sunday, me and my wife, we were in church, and when we went to church, we were told to sit somewhere by the ushers. Now, when we were told to sit that place, I discovered actually what happened was that when we were to sit down, the moment we sat down, I just noticed that we have all the seats filled up, and to move my hands, to shake, to do anything was kind of confining for me. So I told my wife that let's change where we were sitting. So we went to another place to go and sit by the corner, by the extreme sides of the seats. So we sat at the extreme two chairs, and so we sat down and we were enjoying ourselves. But it now happened that when I was actually preparing this presentation, that was when I realized that what was coming up there, right there inside church, was actually the fear of confinement. I was actually afraid of being confined into a small place. I don't want the crowds to kind of choke me up. And usually this always tend to tamper with our sense of freedom. The sense of freedom that we have. What's happening here? What is happening here? I can see I don't know what's happening, but my screen is not showing very, very well. It's showing scattered. Oh my. Okay, so I'm back now. I'm back now. So I guess that was network. Perhaps it must have been network. So sometimes the fear of confinement shows up as you not wanting to be stuck in traffic, you not wanting to wait in queue. When you discover that there is a queue that people have to queue, you want to quickly look for what to do to go over the people who are queuing. So you try to do everything to actually speed up your own time so that you don't remain in the queue. Now, oftentimes this actually comes from a place where we value freedom. And because we value freedom, we don't want to be choked. We don't want to give away our sense of freedom, our sense of being in control. This is what usually happens. This is the fear of confinement, and it is very, very valid. What to do to actually overcome it is going to come in a different video, okay? What to do to actually overcome it will come in a different video. So let me proceed here. Let's talk about fear of intimacy. Now, fear of intimacy is when you are not being able to be vulnerable with others or trust them. Now, this often displays as people not wanting to, this often occurs such that people don't want to be too open with others. And what I mean by that is that people tend to say that, or people who have this kind of fear tend to come to a place where they feel like, I can't completely tell him my history. I can't tell him my story. How is he going to take it? What if? What if? And so, because you are not being able to be vulnerable with others, or maybe even your spouse, or maybe your partner, or maybe people you work with, you get to become panicky anytime you have to actually reveal secrets or things about you. Now, early last year, we came to an awareness that whatever secret you hide from people, when you tell others the secret, it is mainly information. But when somebody else opens up that secret to others, then it becomes a scandal. So that's the fear of intimacy. Now, the reason why I've shared all of this is to bring you to a place of awareness, to let you know that awareness is powerful. Awareness is actually power. By the time you become aware of this, then you are better equipped, better able to actually handle that fear. So, for example, consider with me when I discovered that I had the fear of confinement. In fact, my own fear of confinement, when I discovered, I was actually aware when it was happening. It was when I started processing what happened that I began to realize that, oh, so the fear of confinement also shows up when I don't want to be hugged, or I don't want to be pressed down. I don't want to feel like I can't breathe. So it push like like it said, how you do one thing is how you do everything. Now, the fear of one thing can be transferred to the fear of another thing. So usually fear is oftentimes generalized in our lives. And the reason why I've shared this particular session of this live video is for you to become aware, to become aware. Awareness is power. Awareness is power. Awareness is power. When you become aware of these fears, conscious or unconscious fears that are running your life, you are better able to begin to now resolve them. And that's why I want to introduce you to the Fear Resolve workshop, which is coming up very, very soon. Some of you will need to be in the Fear Resolve workshop. Now, the Fear Resolve workshop is going to be a 2 days physical workshop right in the heart of Lagos, Nigeria, so that I can personally work with a few persons who are going to be physically present, who may need to have some form of help to overcome their fear. Now, I shared everything I shared with you so that you can understand these 10 common fears, phobias, and anxieties. Now, once you can be aware, like I said, you become better empowered to be able to handle them. Once again, I am Dio Samuel, and I am the creator of the Fear Resolve programs that help people to quell their most powerful fears, phobias, and anxiety. So, if you'd like to know more about the Fear Resolve workshop, you can chat me up. I'll be glad to provide some further information to you. But pending that time, what I want you to do right now is to tell me which of these 10 fears did you notice usually props up in your own life? Which of these 10 fears props up in your own life? Please tell me that in the comments below. And as well, let me take this time to appreciate you for being here. Again, this is where I bring this to a close. So let me increase this. Great. Amazing. So Please have yourself a wonderful day. Enjoy yourself, and good day to you, wherever you're joining me from.